Good afternoon, viewers, and welcome to another episode of Futsal868 Corner Talks. I'm your host, Geoffrey Edwards, as well as the president of the Futsal Association. It has been a great pleasure. Last week in episode 71, we discussed sport and education. It was a riveting conversation. And we continue in that vein on the next side. When you graduate with a sports management degree or any degree in a sport related field, what's next? Today, in episode 72, we discuss sport and human resource management. Do we have the right people to advance sport in the Caribbean? Before we continue, one of our guests will not be here this evening. That's Mr. Dave Cameron, or Mr. Whycliffe Dave Cameron, former president of Cricket West Indies. But guys, his segment will be filmed tomorrow and will be coming to you on all social media platforms. So let's take advantage of technology and see what Mr. Cameron has to say as regards to this very interesting topic. I would like to introduce our second guest, Ms. Sherlan Cabralis, who is the program coordinator for the Postgraduate Diploma in Sport Management at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus, and also my former lecturer as well, who actually taught me this topic. Well, one of the many topics she taught me, sports and human resource management. So with that being said, we really going to dive in and we're going to look at the 5 topics of staffing, satisfaction, motivation, and commitment, reward, facilitation or communication, problem solving and decision making, and last but not most importantly to me, change management, which is something that a lot of national sporting organizations, national government bodies in the Caribbean don't know much about or don't want to speak to. Thank you very much, Ms. Cabralis, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Geoffrey.
Let's start immediately. You have been a lecturer at the University of the West Indies for how long? How many students have you churned out when it comes to the undergrad and the post? I'm not putting you on the spot.
That's right.
How many students have you churned out from the undergrad and the postgrad programs?
No, but I do like a rough estimate, which would be I've been around for about 20 years. And if we say 20 people graduate on average, so just times that, that's how many people around with sports management experience as far as from their degree, about 400 people.
And in terms of feedback, how many of them, if you were to do your own analysis, your own data driven, are actually working in sport from the time they have graduated? That's one. And how many of them would have moved from the undergrad to the postgrad side of things?
Okay, so I would say about 10% are directly involved in sport. And we maybe only about 3 or 4% would go into the postgrad. We kind of target the postgrad for people who are already in the sport industry. So it's really a training tool for postgrad programs. So over the period, I may have about 10 undergrad students who would have gone and completed the postgrad.
What does that tell you from a human resource management side of things? And now let's speak staffing. What does that tell you when it comes to the transition from the theoretical to the practical, from me going to school to me actually getting a job?
Right. Well, it's the industry. There limited availability in the industry to hire someone and give them a salary. Now, our sports are driven by volunteerism. All the NSOs are run by volunteers. So when you have a young person coming out of university, they're actually looking for a career that will compensate them. And you find that they wouldn't get that type of opportunities in the sporting industry. So the way that we try to encourage them is really to volunteer, to put themselves up for election as a general secretary, get involved in the community, and thereby really strengthening the foundation of sport, and then hopefully to see that change where the industry grow and create opportunities for employment. But at this point in time, it hasn't really grown at a point where they can consume the number of graduating students from our program.
When we look at sourcing and retention of personnel to work in particular fields, there is a particular there's strategies for which human resource policies and procedures say we are supposed to follow. Without putting you on the spot, given the state-owned enterprises and entities that exist, do you think that we are following those source and recruiting policies? Are we hiring the right people in the right, as human resource management says, hiring the right people to do the right in the right places, to do the right things? Are we doing that?
Well, it comes down to planning. You have to plan. You have to know exactly who you need to run the organization. And even if it's volunteer or paid, if you're part of an organization which is based on voting, right? So if I have to vote for somebody to represent me in my sport, I should be looking for somebody with certain skill sets, right? Certain know-how. Unfortunately, that we don't do that aggressive type of recruitment because the members have to recruit that type of person, and we have to, as a member of an organization, the people around the table, the management, need to sit down and be honest with themselves and say, you know what, who do we need to encourage to come into the national sporting organization or national governing body? What skill set are we looking for? And then you go and you try to encourage, solicit, recruit, to lobby for them to come on board, because you cannot offer them a salary, but you could offer them other rewards. And I know you mentioned rewards, but there are other things that somebody can be rewarded with. As a volunteer, you get that, you get the exposure, the experience, you get an opportunity to travel, to network. There's so many things that you get out of sport that sometimes the financial returns is minimal. But talking to an undergrad and saying that is really like saying an obscene language to them, because if you have invested 3 or 4 years of your life, sometimes 6 years of your life, because you've gone on to maybe do your master's, volunteers, the last thing is the last thing they're thinking about. They're looking for compensation. And so you really need to develop the sporting industry where you will be able to compensate people and attract people with certain skill set to move it to the next level. So it's like, I'm talking in circles, because without it is, it just keep moving, and we're not moving in the right direction.
So that makes total sense. Before we continue, I want to put up a graphic highlighting the peculiarities of sport, where sport is a sector on its own, characterized by unique dynamics, rules, and stakeholders involved, which impact human resource management.
Right.
We look at the human capital impacting on sports results,
Right.
strong values, high complexity in terms of the organizations, and then moving on in terms of the consequences, scarcity of funds and insufficient investments, few major players, and a job market that is not always transparent due to various political pressures, variety of policies and employees, whereby in recruitment processes, contracts and conditions, paid staff, and volunteers. Some of these are what you would have spoken to and spoken about. And it's the second time you mentioned volunteers. Why do you think that we have to go down the road of volunteerism, especially when it is, I just spend, for the postgrad diploma, I just spent $20,000. I get a big certificate. I want to be hired. I want to make back that money, and this is not even the undergrad. I mean, you're not talking about people who went to to other universities that may be even more than that for the master's program or even the PhD. Why do I now have to volunteer in sport? Why is volunteerism in sport so important when sport is an industry just like the oil and gas, medical, law?
Well, it is not like oil and gas, medical and law in Trinidad and Tobago and throughout the Caribbean, because the structure, it is not structure as that at that level. We all sporting organization is run by a board which is voted on. So you have members of the board, somebody put somebody names up and people vote for them based on personality, based on connection, based on likability. It has nothing, most of the time, I'm not trying to dog anybody, but most of the time not based on skill set and know-how from a sports management perspective. It's really about networking and lobbying. So the structure does not have a position, a paid position or paid positions. So unless we reconsider the structure of the NSOs, we really don't have opportunities for graduating students. And so the only way that you could get in there and cause any type of change is you have no choice but to volunteer because there's no paid position. There are very few NSOs with paid positions, and that is cricket, football, um, and that's it. I don't know, maybe in some other the smaller NSO may have an administrative person in the office, and 9 out of 10 times the person does not have a sports management degree. It would be like an admin assistant, and they just want somebody maybe to answer the phone, follow up on emails and do follow-up calls and stuff, so they don't see the need of hiring a sports management major. So it's really the structure sports in Trinidad and the Caribbean which does not accept or have room for graduating students, and that's the reason. It's not like you're saying you have no choice but to volunteer because this is how it goes. No, this is what it is. It's a what it is situation. And unless the NSO decide to layer the structure, so you could have voting members, but then you need to have an executive arm. And so that executive arm is where you should be able to hire somebody with a marketing background and finance, in sports management major, so that those people could actually try to make the NSO financially viable and create opportunities for themselves. And until they sit down and restructure sport, we will still be talking about this 20 years from now.
I was just about to ask you if that means a change in the constitution or the
Yes,
organizational structure, and
definitely.
you answered spot on. Let's go to the chat where there's a question that's coming in from one of our audience members. And I want to say thank you very much to all our audience members. Please continue to interact with us on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page, whereby you can pose questions and get see which we can answer it at the same time. So Ms. Protein would ask, doesn't the university think that they could also reach out to government and businesses since they continue to offer different levels of certification in sport?
Okay. So one of the things that I have been an advocate for is actually for on the job training. And sports should be one of that niche market, just like all the other developing markets. If you want to get into tourism, and so they talk all these buzzwords, tourism for the Caribbean. We talk sports as a budding industry, growing industry, so many opportunities. We talk about agriculture, and there are many little niches in the economy that we talk about, but I don't see any real trust in developing the industry. And one of the areas that I feel that there are a lot of opportunities is the OJT. Now, if the government decides that they will have a quota, say maybe a quota of OJT for sports, for tourism, for agriculture, and all the various sectors that needs a boost, then we can create that kind of opportunities, because each NSO could be entitled to maybe 3 ODTs. And thereby, you have about 36 NSO times 3, right? That's how many graduating students that you could consume in the sporting industry that actually impacts the foundation of the sporting industry. Because now you're paying somebody to come up with ideas to make the sport financially viable, because they have 2 years to work. And then you will have the board who will come up with policies and whatever, and they will be the implementers. And that's where I see that you could really develop the sporting industry by incorporating the OJT program, because you're going to have it going to come from the government. You'll be paying somebody who's qualified to do the particular job, and they will support the particular NSO. So yes, I believe the government should get involved. I mean, I have we have spoken to Sports TT, and we're actually working on something, but the wheel turn pretty slow sometimes. So it's turning.
And at this juncture, I wanna
Mm,
shout out Miss Cabralis and her team at the department at the University of West Indies, as well as Miss Gregoire, Calicia
yes.
Gregoire,
Hmm.
who has been working with the Futsal Association of Trinidad and Tobago recently in allowing us the opportunity to have interns. We had
Right.
2 month interns, and then we had 4 month interns. And I must say that the quality of work from these young ladies and gents have been enormous. And we take the opportunity to salute them, whereby
Mm.
these are the 6 interns who were part of the Bachelor of Science Sports Management internship in sport between the 21st of June to the 23rd of August. To each one of them, we salute you all, and they were fantastic in working with us both from the social media side, one group, and the second group were the ones who implemented the Kids Connect, our free mental health workshop. So to each one of them, we wish you all the best as you continue to work with us. And I must say, Ms. Cabralis,
Hmm.
interesting enough is that a couple of them have actually said that they want to continue to work and be a part of the Futsal
Yes,
868
yes,
family.
yes.
And so you are quite correct as regards to that, and we look forward. We hope that more national sporting organizations can tap into such and really and truly be able to benefit from the knowledge that these young individuals can be able to put on. If we were
Hmm.
to move swiftly on to the next point, when we look at staffing, there's the legal and regulatory issues. Please share with us do what do we mean by that in terms of legal regulatory issues when it comes to staffing? And do you think that NSOs do they understand, NGBs and NSOs understand how to be able to prevent it and how we could be able to navigate through these seamlessly?
No, I don't. Legal, what you said, illegal?
The legal and regulatory issues that exist when it comes to staffing
Okay.
in sport.
What? So, what are the legal issues that?
That exist
Okay.
here.
Well, okay. Well, again, they don't hire anyone, and the conversation in the sense that you have to follow everything that pertains to HR. I mean, there, as it relates to hiring someone, what are the protocols in hiring people, the process by which you hire someone. It needs to be fair and transparent. You need to advertise. So you will have your in-house policy to know how you hire people. If you hire someone from in-house, to give the person who people who are in-house to get that opportunity first, and then after that you advertise, you go through the process, you make sure that you have a very balanced um, selection committee so that you're able to get a unbiased opinion from everyone, and so that the person that you hire, that is the right person for the job, and they would have gone through the processes, and then you'll have no issues. When we hire people based on whims and fancy, that's where we'll end up having legal issues. So are they aware? They don't really go through the process, but you would hope, My hope is that even if you get someone to volunteer to be a part of the NSO, they should have people with certain skill sets. So if I have to look for people to be on my board, I want somebody with an HR background, a marketing background, a finance background, some kind of PR background, so I will pick and choose certain people with certain skill set. So then when we are looking to hire certain people, so the people who we already hire is coaches. So we'll go through the process, very transparent, and we're able to stand up in court, in facing our peers, and be very comfortable with the person that we hire, because we know the procedure. We can show you what we have done to select this particular person. So yes, you just have to follow policies.
I feel like I'm back in class again, yes, because you know that particular um, composition that you just laid out in terms of answering the question would have led to a bunch of experiences across the Caribbean where nepotism reigned, where favoritism reigned, and as some people say, wrong pegs in square holes. We would not necessarily go too much into it, but you were spot on in terms of explaining to us and as viewers, as regards, and those who will be listening on afterwards, as regards to why is it important to do the right thing, guys. Not only just to hire the right people, but the process in terms of hiring the right persons. We're going to take our very first break. And when we come back, we're going to speak to satisfaction, motivation, and commitment, because I really believe that we need to find a way of motivating young persons to decide to choose sports management or any sport related field in terms of study, but also to get them to make that transition into sport. And I'll speak more to why I say into sport, even though Ms. Cabralis is saying volunteerism. So we'll be right back. You want to put that 868 Corner Talk? Sport, episode 72, Sport and Human Resource Management. We'll be right back. Our amazing lineup for sport and series. We are in sport and human resource management. Next week we speak sport and health. So stay tuned with us as we continue this wonderful series. We are here with Ms. Sherlan Cabralis, Program Coordinator of the Postgrad Diploma in Sport Management at the University of West Indies, and also a Senior Lecturer at the undergrad level, as we speak to the theoretical and try to tie it back into the practical aspect of human resource management in sport. This will let you know that Mr. Dave Cameron will be with us later on to be able to give his insight on this interesting topic. So stay with us. Before the break, we look at sport and human resource management in the sense of staffing, where we looked at volunteerism. This segment, we are looking at satisfaction, motivation, and commitment. Ms. Cabralis, how are we going to get young persons to volunteer in sport when I will say this much? Sport is not, we don't, we some people say we have an industry, some people say we don't have an industry. But at the same point in time, I don't think that we love sport enough. How do we, as national governing bodies, national sporting organizations, motivate persons to get involved in our organizations, have them committed, and also leaving satisfied?
Well, thinking about it, right? No, when you asked the question before you left, I was thinking down the road of the way that I advise my students, right? They do a degree in sports management, but I encourage them to do a minor to make themselves more marketable. And that's why I'm not saying that they have, because the way you're saying, like, I tell them they have to volunteer in a sense that they have no other choice. But it's not about no other choice. It's it's the industry. So you just have to know how to use what you have. Okay. So as an undergrad, and you do a degree in sports management, because most of the time people do a sports management because they love sport and they want to be a part of sports, and they see sports from a consumer perspective, or they like a team and they like a person, and they don't totally understand the business of sports. So when they get into the business of sports, it's like get an aha moment. And then when you start to talk about the Caribbean, there's even an aha moment. So it's like, okay, what can you do to contribute to this passion that you have, and also be able to live, understanding the environment that you live in. So when you do an undergrad degree in sports management and you do a minor in, say, marketing or HR or finance or any one of the other recognized, well, the ones that job may have jobs available, because every degree program complain about not having job. It's about marketability. It's about that freedom of being able to have a job and contribute to sport. So you could get involved in your community. You could start your own business by starting your own coaching program, being involved with somebody who have a coaching program. You could get involved in the NSO. Like I'm saying, there's so many things, but you have to know how to massage your environment to get the best out of it. And that is what motivates the student, because it's not one dimensional. It's not like I throw all my eggs in one basket and let me see if it stick. Because you find that the people who run in sport, they don't have sports management degree. They have other degree, and they live quite comfortably and able to volunteer. And we have to be real with our students. So it motivating them is to be able to say, you can have this thing that you love and be able to take care of yourself. And as this thing that you love evolve, you will have the best of both worlds, because you are more than qualified and you have given off your time, and so now you're able to capitalize on the opportunity. So that's the way I motivate them. And then you ask about the NSO. How can the NSO motivate um our young graduates? Get them involved. Oh my God, just get them involved. Listen to them. Get some kind of program to maybe create opportunities where they can come up with ideas and see if I can support the best idea or pick the best out of three. Okay, so you encourage people to send in proposal to do certain things, and then you say, okay, we have certain grants for maybe, and when I say grant, I ain't saying 50,000, and it might be $2,000, where this is what you want to do. Let's support your idea. We have to support younger people's idea. It's not just about you running an organization, because you're going to leave soon, and if you don't get these people involved, we are just going to be in the same position. So that's my thing. Is really about supporting the younger people, the people who coming out and they're anxious and excited about getting involved, because they're fresh with ideas. Capitalize on that until before they will get very cynical, like the rest of some of us. We don't want them to be cynical. We want them to keep that vibrant, bright eye attitude. And so if we just support, we should be fine. Okay.
Denise is saying she agrees and she supports the ideas totally.
Mm-hmm.
So I am coming with this.
Mm-hmm.
The genre of rap started in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
As a backdrop, especially along the west coast of United States, it was a hit against police and police brutality.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's part of the music industry. So guys, I know I'm going to say yes, it was part of a music industry. Yes, there have been music execs who helped, who understood the business of music and could grow anything. But listen to my point. The genre of rap had a very, very rough start, and now it is accepted, whereby even ad agencies, sporting organizations, mainstream entertainment have accepted rap. given the fact that even rap moguls are now billionaires, what that has taught me is that they fought to be a part of a market. They created a niche. They worked on their craft and they beat down doors to the point whereby, in some instances, they created their own doors. I'm saying that because there's something that you said, Ms. Cabralis, whereby young persons supposed to be able to, start their own business, go into coaching, etc., etc. Let's talk some more to that and about that, because it is my humblest opinion that we really and truly should encourage sport entrepreneurs. If it is we are going to really build out the sporting landscape, so we become our employers and by extension employ persons and continue the human resource management cycle that exists. What are your thoughts to that, seeing that the model that it was in existence before, the model that we are operating under now, is not fruitful?
Yeah. No, I am all for that. I mean, you have to support, it's the other part of the thing. It's about being an entrepreneur. You have to create, you have to build the industry, because the industry at the infancy stage, as much as we've been playing sports a very long time, the business of sports in the infancy stage. And so it's open and it's wide open for ideas, and getting young people to be entrepreneurs in sports is really the key to developing the industry. And I'm completely in agreement with you. Using the rapping as an example, the US is a huge industry, so, and a huge market, and so there's a lot of wiggling room for failure. In Trinidad, we're pretty small, so the failure, the wiggling room is not that big. So we have to support. We have to make a conscious effort to support young people. That's the NSO. You have to support them, because we're not going to go very far, and it has to be a conscious effort. Okay.
That leads us to the next point in terms of rewards. What would your advice be to young persons who are just finishing up their sports management program? And I keep using sport management. I should say sport related degree programs, because not
Right.
just
Yes.
sports management alone.
Right.
VTT is doing a great job in terms of other aspects of sport, and and then maybe other persons will be watching who doing physiotherapy in Urimona,
Right.
etc.,
Yeah.
etc., etc. So, what would you advise young persons in terms of holding their heads and understanding reward, both inside of the job that they may get in sport, and also in terms of their intrinsic reward, as to say, there is a reason why I'm here, and I will sooner or later be, when I'm consistent, I can be satisfied, and I will have the necessary reward. What advice would you give to persons who,
But
even though who may be sitting down with a degree, a master's degree,
right.
a PhD,
Right.
and you're thinking, well, what next?
What my question is always, or my word is why. Why did you get involved in this thing in the first place? If you go back and understand you why, you will always have a reason to go forward. Because that why, because you love it. Why? Because I want to help children. Why? Because I want to travel. Why? Because I want to be messy. I don't know. There's so many whys, but that why was a driving force. So zoning on that why. So the why for me would have been, I love sport, and I just wanted a career in sport. I didn't care what career it was, except I didn't want to be a physical education teacher. But this why, and that's what I've done, and I have had other opportunity in different industry, and I did veer to an industry, and it never worked out because it wasn't for me, and I just had to stick with what I originally started with. Why? Because I love sport, I like being involved in sport, I love young people. Sport is very young. and energetic. And so I feel like I want to be like that for the rest of my life. So I stick with my why. So I said, understand your why, and you will always have a reason to move forward.
Facilitation and communication. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
people, that is part of human resource management.
Yeah.
We will not call the national governing body, but we have seen in recent news articles that a
Mm-hmm.
particular national governing body has been, you know, I would say blasted for lack of communication with their
Mm-hmm.
stakeholders, including their members. And from what has been known or what has been in terms of research for this particular program, that seems to be a norm when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to Caribbean national governing bodies and national sporting organizations. We had a situation with similar in Jamaica, where the Jamaican Football Federation, in terms of how they communicated with their players, their footballers, um, it was not taken in the right way. And we could go on and continue in terms of different jurisdictions, island states, where this has been somewhat of an issue. Carry us through the communication process and from a human resource standpoint. And again, people, I want you all to understand that this is really important. This is not just here to be able to say what they're talking human resource management, but communication comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Cabralis is going to educate us as regards to why is communication
Okay.
important and the communication process when it comes to sport and human
Mm-hmm.
resource management. Mr. Cabralis.
Okay. Feel
I'm,
like
I'm
Sean.
gonna, I'm gonna sacrifice you for this one. I'm gonna put your solo layout for this one. I need people to
Well,
hear
it's not
and
gonna be that long.
understand.
Don't
Let's
worry.
go.
It's not a class session. But no, when you look at facilitation and communication, it's actually certain skills of leadership. That's the approach that we use it, because being an effective leader, you have to be an effective communicator and also a facilitator. And that's the approach that I will talk about. So if if you're in charge, when you're in charge of an organization, being an effective communicator is key. So you need to understand the mode of communication, how timely the communication, what you communicate. So mode of communication in this modern time, I feel sometimes I feel the more option we have is less we connected, or is less that you information that you receive. There's no excuse for sharing information. um, you have emails, you have social media. There are many different modes depending on the information that you have to share. So as an effective communicator, you have to share the information. You need to be an active listener. You have to understand the barriers of communication. People have biases against each other. They may have prejudice against each other. So depending on who's bringing the communication, who's sharing the message, you're not going to receive it. So you have to find different modes of communication, like maybe use different people to send the same message. So there are many different techniques and ways of sharing information, but the key is to share the information, to listen, to to be as transparent as possible. And that comes with, and then I could transfer on to facilitation, because to being a facilitator is really about listening. We are not listening to our stakeholders, and we need to listen to our stakeholders, because we're all in the same boat. We sometimes when you look at sport, and yes, you're the president, you're the second vice president, and people who are around the table making decision, the reason that you're making decision is because your members voted you to make those decisions. So communicating with your members, having honest discussion with your members is key to your success. And that is where we'll take it down. It's really about being an effective leader, Jeffrey. So I don't want to go into a communication class, but yes, that's it. And I hear you.
I want persons to really understand that when it is we talk
Yeah.
communication, and Ms. Cabralis would have done a really good job into it. We are looking at the different stakeholders, which include internal staff, community, the media, authorities, and more specifically the fans. For
Right.
each one of us who love international sporting organizations, whether it be a club or it be a national team, we can go at any time on their social media and find that they are communicating with us. And it's very important that we, as national sporting organization, national governing bodies in Trinidad and Tobago and also the Caribbean, do just that. Look at how we communicate and speak to our new age assets and how we do that. And I must commend Cricket West Indies as one of the organizations in the Caribbean who do an extremely great job in terms of communicating with their stakeholders and making sure that they find that balance, because communication is the receiver, yeah, and the sender and the coordinate, because it's with through communication that we solve many of our problems. It's through communication that we facilitate, and that is something that in terms of Caribbean sport we have a lot of issues with, because we generally, when we become leaders, we burn the bridge behind us. So there is a lack of communication between us and the ground, as we like, as the young people say, and we lose sight in terms of who we serve, why we serve, and how we can better serve them, because there is little or no feedback when it comes to that communication cycle or that communication loop. How was song, Ms. Cabralis? How a
No,
teaching work?
well, yeah. No, I mean, you're going into the basics of communication as it relates to sender and receiver. And
Yes.
so you could take it in different angles. So for me, it's really, when we talk in communication, we talk about leadership, because from an HR perspective, we always, from us, when we're talking about sports, because HR could go in so many different angles, but the focus that we try to look at is really developing good leaders to lead sports, so being an effective communicator, being a facilitator, motivator, someone who teaches, someone who listens, those type of thing we try to focus on. But you're right on point with
So
what you
then
were
my
saying.
question now is, how do you make a good leader a good communicator? Is it that you're saying a good leader is naturally a good communicator?
No,
Or is it
no,
a skill set
no.
that he has to develop? And if it's a skill set that he or she has to develop, what are some of the practices that they can put in place to make them a better communicator, a more effective and efficient communicator? Some people listening to this program are going to be laughing because they say, Geoffrey, you just love to talk. So you don't have a problem. You love to talk. Right? So tell me how it is we can be able to have a more effective and efficient communicator, because even though I might like to talk, that doesn't necessarily mean that the information that's supposed to reach my subordinates, the right information at the right time reaches my subordinates. How do we fix that problem?
Yeah, well, as I say, I like to talk. Like to talk is not as important as being an active listener. An effective communicator is someone who listens. So when you listen, you're able to understand what people are trying to share, what information is saying. So first, listen and understanding the barriers to communication, because you might be busy talking but they're not listening. There's a lot of noise being, they may not like you, so you may have something really good to say, but because they don't like you, they're not hearing you. They may be biased to certain situations. They may have an alliance with someone else. There's so many things. So as a leader, you need to understand the environment that you're operating in, and try to have that open conversation where you listen and you don't interrupt, you don't try to interpret what the person is saying. So you ask questions to make sure that you clarify what the person is saying. And so that way you're developing a more positive relationship with your stakeholders. And it's not only a one-on-one thing, it's really about having a conversation with, like you were saying, the media, your stakeholders, your members. So you're not talking down at anybody, but you're really trying to learn from each other so we can move together in a positive direction. And that's what good communication is all about, and good leadership is all about.
Miss
Okay.
Carol Beckford agrees with you totally when she says a leader listens and acts decisively. So thank you very
Exactly.
much, Ms. Beckford, for chiming in on that, and in terms of um, telling us, your thoughts. And again, to those who are watching us on Facebook, Instagram, and even my LinkedIn page, please feel free to continue to chime in on the conversation. It's very interesting. There's something you said there that hit home to me in terms of they may not like you. And I'm going to be a little controversial here because you have been a sport leader for years, but more so you are a female sport leader.
Yeah.
How do you, as a female sport leader, communicate effectively in a male-dominated industry? Noting that football and cricket are the two most popular sports in the Caribbean, and I wish that Mr. I'll ask you a question tomorrow. Don't worry, we'll ask you a question tomorrow. How do you do that? How do you communicate effectively and efficiently to ensure that they listen, that we hear you?
Right. Well, first of all, you need to be prepared. You have to be prepared. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to be comfortable with who you are, and be open for criticism. Be open for people to ask questions. Be open to saying that you don't know. So for me, I'm comfortable with who I am, and understanding that people come from have different experiences, and so accepting people for who they are and what they bring to the table. That's how I operate with everybody that I interact with. And I try to maintain that for people who don't want to be in that type of relationship. Well, I don't bother. I really don't bother. As the young people say, I don't cater.
We're going to take a
Really
quick break. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back as we enter into the last phase of this conversation, where we look at sport and human resource management. When we come back, we're going to look at problem solving, decision making, and most importantly, who moved my cheese?
My favorite book.
Yes.
Storyblocks Audio.
I'm trying to get. Yes?
Episode 72. Episode 72. Sport and human resource management. Before we left, I asked a question as regards to Ms. Cabralis being a female leader and communication to a male-dominated industry. And it's interesting Ms. Beckford chimed in with this comment. Females are always a full block behind. So our work is way harder. And we have to be strategic. We have to form alliances that folks will like. And she puts like in inverted commas.
Like.
Ms. Cabralis, your thoughts as regards to that comment, if it is we may continue speaking communication in sports and human resource management.
As you say, like.
Yes.
it says a lot. I like that she said we have to build alliances. Female administrators have to support each other. I Sometimes I feel female are more critical of other females than men, and that's it's a hard road because you're already in the minority, and the support system is not there. So we need to support. I'm not saying the ultra female type of thing where we against them type of thing, not that type of way. We're talking about genuine support where we we look out for each other, we support each other, and stop judging people for what is not the focus. The focus is to be an administrator. Let's focus on administration. Everything else should be left behind. And that's what we need to do more than ever, because it's not about liking, but it's what you can bring to the table. And I try to stick to that. You judge me based on what I bring to the table, nothing else. Leave that home. Right? So
Perfect
agree.
answer to lead us to the next segment of problem solving and decision making. You ain't like me, but I know how to solve the problem. You ain't
Exactly.
like me, but I can make the right decisions. Let's talk problem solving and decision making, and
Yeah.
how it is part of this conversation in terms of human resource management in sport, and more specifically from a Caribbean landscape.
Right. So first and foremost, you need to recognize what the problem is. You need to admit there's a problem. You need to be able to define the problem. And that is our biggest hurdle. Is that sometimes we think the problem is surface level when it's really deep. And we have to dig deep. So that's why we have to communicate. That's why we have to be honest with ourselves, facilitate, maybe bring the group together, have that honest conversation. And so then we be able to identify the problem, try to look for solutions. How can we address these solutions? And then we make decision based on the solution that's in front of us. And then collectively, we will decide how we move forward. And if we need to change, collectively, we change our decision. But we have to know exactly what the problem is. We have to be able to identify it. We need to dig deep. We need to be honest with ourselves in order to solve it. If we just surface skim out something, that problem would be so deep rooted in your system that it becomes toxic, and we try not to be toxic. So that is the steps that I try to take. Know exactly what it is we're trying to solve, look for solutions, and then collectively make a decision, and then we move forward, and we change as we go along if we have to.
We change.
Yes.
As we talk change, who moved my cheese?
Yes,
For
that's
those
the best
who,
book.
for those who are wondering what am I speaking about, yes, guys, please Google it. There's a book written that Miss Cabralis actually introduced our postgraduate diploma class to, and I'm sure that all of our classes should have introduced them to it.
Of course, yes.
Um, by Dr. Spencer Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
So again, please Google it. Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. It's a very short book, but very, very interesting nevertheless. Ms. Cabralis, please share with us why is it this book is so important, and how does it relate to change management? And then
Right.
we could speak to helping our NGBs and NSOs in the Caribbean deal with change management, especially being in a pandemic. And as I say, this is our new normal. We have to learn to pivot. Talk to us.
Right. Um, well, Who Moved My Cheese is the book is about two small people and two mouse. And the gist of the book is that we as people, we overanalyze certain things. And sometimes it's just to get up and move in some situations. So where the two little mouse realize things have changed, they're like, all right, let's move. And they just move on. Didn't even think about it. There's no cheese, let's go. So for people now, that cheese represents so much. It might represent your position, your family life, your money, and you may have lost your job. And so you sit down hemming and hawing, that's the name of the two mouths, thinking about why me, why me. And you just sit there in your cheeseless situation. It's not going to change, it's already gone. So instead of doing that, you should just pick up and go. But you're not a simpleton, so you may analyze the situation. You may you may go down a path and it didn't work out for you, so you take note of that and you try some other path, and you continue going outside onto the unknown. And that is what life is about. Is really about, we cannot predict what's going to happen. I mean, look, COVID came, and who would have predicted that past almost 2 years we would be in this situation. So what do? You have to move with the cheese. They keep moving the cheese. They keep moving the goalposts. Things keep moving. Things keep changing. So get up and move. Evaluate the environment. Evaluate your situation. Be aware of your surrounding. Be aware of the people that you know. Get to know new people. And so it's always, life is constantly changing. And that's the gist of the book. The book is, don't be a simpleton. Just get up, move, but be wary of your environment. And that's basically what it is.
I will ask anyone and everyone to try and get a copy of this book, Who
Yes,
Movement by Dr. Spencer Johnson. Guys,
it's
it's a brilliant book. It can be devoured in, in 3 hours. But really truly a life-changing book, to be quite frank and honest with you.
Mhm,
But let's talk about it. Let's talk about it from the change management standpoint. uh,
mhm,
National governing bodies and national sporting organizations, where we have a situation in the Caribbean
mhm,
where we have persons who are retired.
mhm.
Whether no matter the Caribbean jurisdiction you are in, they are past retirement age, still holding on to the reins of sport. But as a matter of fact, let's be real. It's not only the Caribbean that happens. This happens even international organizations, international sporting federations. So I want to correct myself in that regards. I'm going to zoom in to us, who we are here, right? How do we deal with change management
Hmm.
from a national governing body, national sporting organization? What are your suggestions for us in terms of change and to do that effectively and efficiently? Because obviously, change is very difficult for anyone to go through, for anyone
Mhm.
to accept that I'm no longer the big kahuna, I'm no longer the one with the most amount of ideas. There might be somebody who is younger than me who may understand blockchain, who may understand OTT, who may understand data sets. I don't know what that is, but yet
Mhm.
it is they're coming to me with this information. Or here it is. I think I'm above my time. Let me talk about succession planning. Walk us through change management and how we as national organizations, sporting organizations, both national and community, can be able to deal with this.
Right. So being a change maker is also another leadership quality. Okay. As a good leader, you're also a change maker. Now, if the leader himself do not want to change, that's the next story. But you would have change agents that will recognize that they need to have a change, and then they will. The process is like everything else. You understand there is need for change, and you have to be able to get buy-in from the membership, from your stakeholders, to understand that we need change. And in order for people to understand that they need change, is for you to give them a rational reason and show them how this change will benefit them. Because nobody changes unless it benefits, unless you have no choice. Okay, because even now in our COVID situation, is vaccine, non-vaccine, and the amount of information going, people are able to justify their position. and you're not getting that complete change. I mean, it's coming slowly, but it will take a little time. So you have to give people rational reason for change. And if you cannot share that information or communicate that information effectively, you're not going to get change. And that's the key for change, is having that change agent who able to sell your idea. So for the NSOs, if the leader doesn't want change, certain members in the community, in within the community, are going to be the change maker. And you see it, you see people will step up and they will voice their opinion, and other people will buy in based on what they're selling. And you may not get everybody on the same page, but you will see the change coming because somebody would have stepped up as a change agent. But that's basically how it goes down. Okay.
Totally get that. And while as you were speaking, somebody also advised that we should add to that library of literature, Crucial
Yeah.
Conversations, which is another great book as regards to change
Okay.
management, and helping you to understand change management.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to close with how we started.
Mm-hmm.
The question, Ms. Cabralis,
Yes.
do we have the right people to advance in the Caribbean? So just to recap all that we spoke about. We spoke about
Mhm.
staffing, including volunteerism. We spoke about satisfaction, motivation, and commitment. We touched a little bit on rewards. We spoke as regards to communication, both effective and efficient communication, problem solving and decision making, and lastly, change management, with the last three dedicated to leaders and leadership. So, repeating it again, do we have the right people to advance sport in the Caribbean?
No, you see that question could go either way, right? Do we have the right people as in the position now? Is that the position, or do we have the right people that can move in sports? We have enough. We have the right people. They're well qualified that they can move sport in the right direction. But I cannot speak on every NSO to say that every NSO do not have the right people. I know that we have the people available to take sports to the next level. They are well qualified and the they have ideas that can take sport to the next level. Yes, we do.
And as the sun sets beautifully in the
Uh-huh.
Caribbean island of Trinidad and Tobago, as you
Yeah,
see in
take
the
us to the
backdrop
back. Yeah.
of Mr. Valley, is how we end the show. What a beautiful way of saying it.
Mhm.
And on behalf of the Futsal Association of Trinidad and Tobago, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Valley,
Thank you
for
very much.
spending this wonderful time with us in bringing to life such a topic as sport and human resource management. I honestly speaking, I was asking myself, how are we going to do this for an hour? You
Mhm.
understand what I'm saying? But we really you did a really great job. And I want to say thank you very much. And to all the students
Okay.
who have been a part of Ms. Cabralis' lecture when it comes to this topic, it is very much important to understanding and enacting what you have learned to be able to make an impact in the industry. She spoke to volunteerism. Let's continue to go out there, no matter which position you are in or seek to be in, and volunteer. Make yourself known, be heard. Go out there and knock doors down or create your own doors, as we spoke about sport entrepreneurship. Leadership, let's look at how it is we can be able to be better leaders in terms of communication, solving, and decision making. And last but not least, pivot. Just like in sport, whereby we have to pivot to score goals, we have to pivot to shoot a basket, we have to pivot in Miss Beckford's case, where she loved the NFL. We have to pivot in order to put that shot that ball all the way down to the end zone for somebody to take the wide receiver to catch it. Let's continue to pivot and be able to score and take our team to victory. So once again, it has been a wonderful blessing to have each one of you join us. Be
Thank
great,
you.
be blessed, and see you all next time. Thank you very much, and
Thank
have a
you.
great one, guys.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Storyblocks Audio.